Cypress Financial Group presents the Retirement Roundtable Podcast with John Scallan. Get more at cypressfinancial.net. Now, let's get to the show.
My name is Mark Owens, and John Scallan, before we get rolling this weekend, at first I was like, I thought you had darker hair, but apparently now you have blonde hair. And is this something new that's happening, or where's this coming from, buddy?
You're killing me, Mark. It might be gray hair. I've never been a blonde. I mean, I know they say blondes have more fun, but in spite of all this pollen in the air and the azaleas blooming, I'm still had a great week. Got to do an Easter egg hunt with the grandkids. And man, it's other than the pollen, I'm doing fantastic.
Pollen.
And by the way, for our listeners, I do not have blonde hair.
It's the pollen that's overtaken John Scallan. That's what it is.
It's in my hair, Mark. That's the problem.
You know, I used to, God bless my bride, my wife Gretchen. She is allergic to air. Like, she's allergic to everything. Bless her heart. And throughout the years, pollen would come through and it would just knock her out. And there's a little part of me that's like, oh man, that sucks for you. Until this year, last weekend, I could not breathe. I was sniffing and sneezing, and she's like, that is karma. How dare you make fun of me for so long? Now
she was just mad about the shrimp shells, man. She's just payback.
And then she hid the allergy pills, so she got the last laugh on that one. But hope you're having a good weekend out there. Hope the allergies aren't killing you too bad. But right now, I want to talk about your financial future with John Scallan. Again, that number 504-732-1001. And, John, the Oscars recently handed out a couple of weeks ago. But here's something that a lot of people didn't know. If you win an Oscar, well, that statue, it's not really yours. Now, you can keep it, you can display it, but you can't ever sell it. And if you did try to sell it, the Academy could take you to court. So this kind of made me think about what you do. Isn't that kind of like a 401k or an IRA? It's in our name, but the IRS has a claim on part of it. And if we pass it on, the IRS gets paid before our kids do. And if you don't follow their rules, there are penalties. So, John, help me out here. How do we gain more control over our retirement money instead of letting Uncle Sam's rule book dictate everything?
Yeah, the IRS, your silent partner in a 401k or an IRA. Mark, that's actually a perfect analogy because most people think, hey, I've got $1 million in my 401k. I've got no debt. I'm pretty well set. But Mark, what a lot of people don't really think about, that's not actually $1 million. That's $1 million minus whatever the IRS is going to take. And depending on your tax situation, that could be 20, 25, 30, even as high as 40% when you factor in federal and state taxes. So when someone says they've got $1 million nest egg, really the first question I ask is that before or after taxes? Because if it's all in a traditional IRA, a 401k, again, you don't actually have that $1 million. The IRS is a silent partner in that account.
And as you've said before, you can't just decide not to take the money out of it. The IRS forces you to start withdrawing at the age of 73.
Correct, my friend. Required minimum distributions, also known as RMDs. And here's where it gets painful. Imagine someone, let's say they live in Kenner, retired, 73 years old, living comfortably on Social Security and a small pension. They've got, let's just call it $800,000 in a traditional IRA that they've been thinking, hey, I'm going to leave this money to the kids because I really don't need it. They're thinking I'll save this for later. Again, leave it to the kids. At 73 years old, the IRS says, hang on a minute. You've got to take out $30,000 this year, whether you want to or not. And that $30,000 potentially could push them into a higher tax bracket. Now they may pay more taxes on their Social Security. They might get hit with higher Medicare premiums because of the dreaded IRMA tax. And they're paying taxes on money they never wanted to pay on in the first place.
So basically, they're being penalized for saving too much in the wrong type of account.
Yeah, exactly. And Mark, it actually gets worse when you die. If you leave that $800,000 IRA to your kids, they also inherit a tax bill. Under the new Secure Act tax rules, they have to drain and pay taxes on that entire IRA within a 10-year period. And every dollar they pull out is taxed at their income tax rate, which is probably higher than their parents that left it to them because they're still working. I mean, Mark, instead of leaving $800,000 to your kids, you're leaving them maybe $500,000 or $600,000 after taxes. The IRS got paid first.
It's funny. We love Uncle Sam on the 4th of July, but then the rest of the year, we're like, Uncle Sam, man, get out of my pocket. IRS, get out of my pocket. Let me ask you this, John. Let me give that number real quick, 504-732-1001. Always thinking about your tax strategy at Cypress Financial, 504-732-1001. What is the fix? How do you reduce the IRS claims on your retirement accounts?
Mark, as a young advisor, I never forget sitting in a conference room and, one of the senior advisors in his 60s says, "Ladies, gentlemen, what's the best thing about a 401k?" And in unison, we all said, "Well, the money goes in pre-tax." Then he raised his finger in the air and said, "And what's the worst thing about a 401k?" And again, all of us in unison said, "Well, you've got to pay taxes on that money when it comes out." It's a double-edged sword. So, Mark, you asked about the fix, right? We recommend in just about every single meeting to start doing strategic Roth conversions right now before age 73, before you are forced to take RMDs. Very simply, you convert a portion of that traditional IRA to a Roth IRA while you're still in a lower tax bracket. Yes, you do pay taxes on the conversion, but you pay them at today's rates, which might be lower than tomorrow's rates. And once it's in the Roth, think about this. It grows tax-free forever. No RMDs, no taxes when you take it out, no taxes if your kids inherit the money. For that person with $800,000, maybe we convert just $50,000 a year for the next several years. We're paying taxes at 12%, 22%, maybe an average rate of 15 or 16% bracket instead of waiting until they're forced into that 24 or even 32% tax bracket later. And Mark, we're shrinking the IRA. So the RMDs, when you're forced to take it out, are much smaller when they start.
So basically, and this is my 10,000 foot view on this one, it feels like you're saying we're prepaying taxes, but at a bit of a discount.
Yeah, Mark, well said. And I really have to give a plug to this incredible software we have called the Retirement Analyzer. We are always looking for ways to give our clients, let's just call it an edge in retirement. What are some little things that we can do?
John, if somebody's listening this weekend, they're sitting on a big traditional IRA, they haven't really thought about Roth conversions, what can they do?
First thing I would suggest, pick up the phone and call us, 504-732-1001. You're going to talk to someone who's friendly, who's kind, who's really interested in your life and interested in how we can actually help you. We will look at your tax situation. We'll ask questions and we'll calculate, what bracket are you in now? What will your RMDs look like at 73 years old? How much could we convert each year without spiking your taxes? Remember, these initial meetings are always complimentary. We will run these projections, show you what you pay in taxes on these conversions versus what you would pay later in RMDs, and we will build a multi-year conversion strategy. I mean, Mark, remember, because your 401k or IRA is in your name, but right now the IRS owns a big piece of it. And if you don't take action, if you don't at the very least look at these strategies and weigh out, does it make sense to do partial conversions, the IRS is going to collect on their claim, whether you like it or not.
John, there is a piece in the New York Times from economist Richard Bookstaver, and it's getting a lot of attention. He says the next financial crisis could be more severe than 2008. And it's not one big problem. It's multiple risks colliding at the same time. Geopolitics, private credit, AI. So for somebody who's about 5 years from retirement, is this just noise or is this a real warning sign, something that we should be paying attention to?
Oh, Mark, I'm listen, I want to say this up front. I'm not a guy who likes to scream and pound the table that the financial sky is going to fall. But listen, these are significant risks. I think everybody can agree the world is noisier. I think everyone can agree that, with this onslaught of artificial intelligence, I mean, things are changing quickly. I've been getting questions like this, Mark, for the past several months. And here's what I tell people. We can never predict crashes. Nobody can, but you can prepare for them. Mark, I've been an advisor since the Black Monday, 1987, the dot-com bust, when the Twin Towers went down, 2008, the pandemic, and, dozens of flash crashes in between. Here's what I've learned. If you're 5 years from retirement and you're 100% exposed to market risk, if all your money is in the market, we would suggest that you're probably not properly prepared.
So he talks about in that article, he's talking about all these risks colliding at the same time. He mentioned geopolitics, private credit, and AI. If they all collide, what is he talking about? What does it mean if all these collide, creating a potential repeat of 2008?
Yeah, Mark, let me take these one at a time, and I'm going to start with private credit. I mean, private credit, private money going in to fund, AI and data centers. I mean, this market has literally exploded. It's sitting at about $3.5 trillion right now. Now, keep in mind, that's money that companies are borrowing outside of traditional banks. And the problem is that there's way less regulation, way less transparency than the banking system, which is federally regulated. So if something goes wrong in private credit, it potentially could spread fast. I mean, when you brought up 2008, think about it. With the subprime mortgages, very few people saw the risks until it was too late. Same potential here. Let's move on to the second point, artificial intelligence. And Mark, here's where it really gets interesting. We're not just talking about robots or algorithms causing flash crashes. I mean, even though that is a risk, we're talking about potential job displacement on a pretty large scale. Some estimates say AI could displace 30 or even 40% of jobs in the next decade. That's accountants, paralegals, customer service reps, radiologists, white-collar jobs that we thought were safe. And, there is a potential for a chain reaction when a lot of people lose their jobs. Mark, I don't know if I've ever said this to you before, but consumer spending is about 70% of our economy. So if AI wipes out enough jobs, people stop buying cars, they stop going out to eat, they stop spending money. And when consumer spending collapses, that's a big deal for the economy. Potentially companies will go under, the stock market tanks, it becomes, a very difficult downward spiral.
Well, you are just bringing all the happy joy feelings to me this weekend here, John.
Listen, do I think all of this is going to happen? I sure hope not.
Right.
But when it comes to designing portfolios, listen, we plan for the worst. Certainly we hope for the best. Certainly we hope Elon Musk is right, that we won't even need money anymore because AI is going to usher in an era of true abundance. But as a financial advisor and as someone who's been in this industry for decades, I still have the scars of these crashes. And that's what our job is, helping people prepare and helping people to make sure that they're ready.
Yep. The power of having a plan, 504-732-1001. Again, 504-732-1001. Obviously, John Scallan, the team at Cypress Financial, they do not have that crystal ball, but they can definitely help you prepare for what's next. And we just talked about a little bit there, private credit, AI. But what about geopolitics? How does this play into everything?
Well, speaking of geopolitics, I think, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, everybody's sitting on pins and needles about, what's going on in the Middle East. Wars, trade disruptions, energy shocks, any of these things can trigger sell-offs in the market. And the concern is that if all three of these risks, if they could potentially collide at once and create something that, looks very, very similar to 2008.
Okay, I want to talk to that adult again about 5 years from retirement. They hear what you say, John, but what could they be doing? What should they be doing differently?
Yeah, Mark, I'm preaching from the hymn book that I always speak from. I mean, here's what I see all the time. Think about potentially someone on the North Shore. Maybe he's 60 years old, planning to retire at 65. He's got $900,000 saved, but his entire portfolio is in stock because for the last 30 years, that strategy has worked and served him well. Buy and hold, stay aggressive, don't panic. But now he's 5 years out. He doesn't have 2 decades or 3 decades or even a decade to recover from a big crash. And if we hit another significant crash, 2008, the pandemic that lingers, in year 1 or 2 of his retirement, if he gets hit early on, potentially they do not recover. He's forced to sell stocks at depressed prices just to pay his bills. And by the time the market recovers, he's burned through, half of his portfolio and he's eyeballing running out of money in his mid to late 70s.
It's a hypothetical situation, but it has some real world situations here, John. So what do you do from somebody that would be in a situation like that?
Mark, we talk about this every week on the show. We talk about a bucketing strategy or a basketball team, 5 players doing different things. We divide the portfolio into a minimum of 3 buckets. Bucket 1 is short-term guaranteed income, enough to cover 5 years of expenses. It is sitting in solutions that guarantee principal and interest to provide income. Bucket 2, it's midterm conservative growth. Maybe bonds, dividend-paying stocks, some real estate exposure. This is money that this hypothetical client won't need for 5 to 10 years. So it can take some mid-level risk, but it's not aggressive. Let's talk about bucket 3, long-term growth, stocks. How about actively managed portfolios for all of our listeners out there? Actively managed portfolios. This is money he won't touch for 10 plus years. And if the market crashes, he cares, but he also knows that he's got buckets 1 and 2 protecting him while bucket 3 recovers.
So you're still keeping money invested for growth, but you're preserving the money that he needs sooner than later.
Exactly, my friend. And for bucket 3, I want to go back to actively managed strategies that can move to cash when the signals turn negative in the market. We're not riding these crashes down, hoping for the best. We are actually managing the risk actively. I mean, Mark, here's the reality. I don't know if we're going to have another 2008. I pray to God that we don't. I don't know if private credit is going to blow up. I don't know if AI is going to cause mass unemployment. But I know this, and I know this very, very well, that if you're 5 years from retirement and you're 100% exposed to the market, you need to take a hard look at the risk that you are taking.
Somebody's listening this weekend. They hear what you say, John, and said, I need to have a deeper conversation about this with you and the team at Cypress Financial. What can they do?
Again, pick up the phone, 504-732-1001. Go to cypressfinancial.net. You can get more information. You can book an appointment. Listen, let's get together and look at your portfolio, a complementary analysis. What we're going to do, simply put, how much of your money is exposed to the market and a potential crash? Do you have different buckets set up so that even if there is a huge pullback in the market, it does not destroy your plan? Or is everything riding on the market staying strong the day until you retire? Again, complimentary meetings by phone, by Zoom, in person. We will meet you at your home or business. We would love to have you in one of our 2 offices, 3421 North Causeway Boulevard in Metairie. We're on Florida Street in Mandeville. Again, let's get together, really do a deep dive and stress test your plan and just really identify if you have vulnerabilities. And we're going to show you how to build protection without giving up growth.
Investment advisory services offered through Cypress Financial Group, a registered investment advisor firm. Registration is not an endorsement of the firm by securities regulators. By contacting us, you may be provided with information about insurance products, including annuities offered through Cypress Financial Group, John Scallan, Louisiana Insurance License Number 1064997. The firms are separate entities. Annuity guarantees rely on the financial strength and claims paying ability of the issuing insurance company and are not offered by Cypress Financial Group. Read your contract for restrictions, limitations, or penalties.